Welcome to Sword of the Month Club. I'm one of your hosts, Justin, and I'm really glad you've joined us this week as we launch our channel, where we're going to feature a new sword each month. Let's break down how that works. Each Wednesday of the month, we're going to upload a fresh video featuring the Sword of the Month. But the first Wednesday of each month, that starts with the box, just like this one. Weeks 2 through 3 will be all about our experience using the sword, while the final Wednesday of the month will be our full review and ranking within our sword collection. So, without any further ado, let's crack into the box to see what we have in store for this month. This month's blade is the SWMZ-1009 from Swordier, so let's check it out. Let's start with the scabbard. The fit on the blade is wonderfully secure, and you can see that I can confidently hold it upside down without fear of it falling free. If I shake it with some real authority, I can convince it to drop free, but it has to be shaken with some real purpose. The blade draws and sheaths freely without any issues. The throat is the opening in which the blade is inserted into the scabbard. In ideal circumstances, they're going to be shaped with the exact sword in mind, which is generally unfeasible in the context of mass manufacture. However, that doesn't mean that the fit here is anything other than excellent. This scabbard features a rein flap, which is this section of leather which rises above the throat, and if we pull it back, we can indeed confirm that it is a true wood core scabbard. Moving down the length of the scabbard, we can see it has a nice underlying bit of shaping by the addition of some risers rather than leaving it plain and simple, which honestly is wonderful to see at the price point that this sword is offered at. Frankly, the inclusion of a scabbard at all is a huge bonus in general. Backing up, we can see the suspension system, which consists of a pair of simple leather bands which wrap the scabbard within the indentations defined by the risers beneath the leather wrap. These bands feature a nice machined bit of tooling, which is far nicer than leaving them plain in my opinion. This bit of extra detail is greatly appreciated. The buckles appear to be made of brass and are secured in place by a set of Chicago screws which feature a nice radial detail. All the way down at the end of the scabbard, we find the chape, which is this metal cap at the very end of the tip, which protects what might otherwise be a very fragile portion of the scabbard from undue wear and tear. It has a simple satin finish which perfectly matches the finish on the hilt. The shape has a nice, simple upswept curve to it, which keeps it from being boring, and has a nice thickness so we know it's going to do its job for a long time. On the back side of the scabbard, we find that it is stitched closed. The stitching is tight and even throughout, and with the absence of risers on the back side, the stitching at least feels like a nice element. This is clearly a real leather, which can easily be seen here at the rain flap between the stitched finish. I can easily pull the leather back from this black liner, which I assume is a moisture barrier, and you can see the grain of the leather. This is much easier to see on the suspension system itself. For the hilt, the pommel is the portion of the sword which is found at the bottommost portion of the hilt. The pommel serves dual purposes as both a counterweight for the sword as well as providing a solid anchor point for the peen. This pommel features a nice, softly faceted scent stopper design, which happens to be my personal favorite. This was common from the 14th through 16th centuries. There are 8 facets in all, which are carried onto the bottom. The whole pommel has a nice even satin finish, which perfectly matches the shape on the scabbard. I really love this particular shape of pommel because you can easily get a hand onto it as part of the handle itself. From a practicality perspective, this does mean that this particular pommel shape does not lend itself to helping index the blade, but that's one of the trade-offs you get for what's otherwise a really pleasing shape in the hand. This sword is peened, which means that there isn't going to be any disassembly to show you the finer points of the construction of the hilt, and that's completely fine. It feels rock solid. I don't know if I would say that this peen was prominent, but I certainly wouldn't call it blended into the pommel either. The peen is faceted, however these facets don't match the facets of the pommel, as the pommel facets terminate gradually and end prior to where they meet with the peen. Faceting the peen is a nice detail which I much prefer to leaving it either squared or rounded off. The grip is made of a leather wrap featuring a nice wire wrap over the lower portion. The grip has an excellent hexagonal shape which easily indexes the blade. There is a riser just before the wire wrap, which is a nice plus. On the backside, if there could be said to have a backside on a double-edged weapon, it is stitched close with the same nice even style of stitching found on the scabbard, and I would say the stitching here feels far tighter on the grip, which is better for obvious reasons. You can definitely feel the stitching in the hand. At no point does it feel uncomfortable. Moving further up the hilt, we find the quillins, which features the same even satin finish that we see on the scabbard shape as well as on the pommel. It is sort of hexagonally faceted rather than being a plain bar, and it features a nice S-curve shape, which is very pleasing. Where it marries up with the shoulders of the blade, it is well seated, but if we really want to nitpick the finer details of the fit and finish, within the recessed portion of the quillins where the blade's shoulders actually seat is not quite up to the same level of standard as the rest of the fit and finish on the hilt. This is a really minor nitpick, and I can't imagine that someone would even notice it without going through an extremely detailed overlook. It is well within what I would consider to be acceptable. Moving on to the real business end of the sword, we arrive at the blade. This is an Oakeshott Type 18B blade with a wonderfully smooth taper from 4.8 centimeters to 3 centimeters, approximately 53 centimeters up the blade, where the taper becomes slightly more aggressive with a gentle arc for the remaining 39 centimeters of blade. The total blade length is 92 centimeters, with the point of balance being 9 centimeters from the hilt. The center of percussion, which is essentially the sweet spot for impact and cutting, is right at 53 centimeters from the hilt, where the tapering of the blade becomes more aggressive. This blade does feature a distal taper, which means it slowly thins in thickness from the hilt to the point, which shifts the weight closer into the hand. The edge features an even convex shape, which should make it wonderful for cutting. At a touch, it feels wonderfully sharp. This blade does not feature the reinforced point like is offered on Swordier's upgraded Type 18C blade. This point definitely seems more than sufficient. If we really want to continue to nitpick like we did with the quillins, we can see that the point is ever so slightly unevenly shaped, but again, this is being extremely picky. This point is completely functional, and without giving the sword a really detailed bit of scrutiny, I don't think anyone would even notice. The total weight of the sword itself is 1.534 kilograms, with the scabbard weighing an additional 452 grams, bringing the combined weight of both the blade and scabbard at 1.986 kilograms. We're excited to see this sword in action, but let's face it, saying SWMZ-1009 all month is going to be as frustrating for you to hear as it will be for me to say. And since some sword manufacturers seem to specialize in models with full-on word salad names or incomprehensible strings of letters and numbers, we've decided to give each sword a code name. It makes it easier for us to reference, easier for us to talk about, and gives the blade a bit of personality. And with that in mind, allow me to introduce you to Wilhelm, Sworder's model SWMZ-1009. We at Sword of the Month Club are extremely excited to dive in over the next month to put Wilhelm through its paces. And if that sounds as exciting to you as it does to us, I hope that you're going to stab those like and subscribe buttons to join us. Stay sharp out there.